Hello, Sally Magee here with Magee Coaching Solutions, ready for our next lesson in this alcohol-free challenge. Hope you guys are ready for this. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I've got a couple of slides here for you guys today. Today's lesson is on 3 reasons we drink. And actually, we're going to just stay focused on the first reason, which is the substance. So 3 reasons we drink is our lesson for today, starting with the substance. The main 3 reasons why people drink is, first of all, the substance. Alcohol is addictive. Number 2 is our culture. We have been conditioned to drink. Our conditioning, our culture, our marketing, advertising, the fact that it's everywhere. It's normal and expected to drink at birthday parties, weddings, ball games, even funerals. And then the third reason is our brain, our habits, our neural pathways, those thoughts, emotions, and the habits that we've developed. So today we're just going to we're going to be focused on just that first one, the substance. So let's go ahead and dive right in. Alcohol as a substance. Alcohol is addictive. I think we all know this by now, right? I wanted to first start off by saying that if you're drinking more than you want to, you are not broken. There's nothing wrong with you. I'm going to repeat that. You're not broken. There's nothing wrong with you. Under the right circumstances, any human being can become addicted to alcohol because alcohol is an addictive substance. That's the way it works, folks. So if it feels like alcohol has a grip on you, it did exactly what it was designed to do. It changes our brain chemistry. But the good news is you can change it back. The brain is an amazing thing. We can learn new habits, and we can also correct the changes in our brain chemistry that alcohol has caused. So I want to just say kind of early on here that you don't have to submit to a higher power. You don't have to declare yourself as an alcoholic to make this shift and to take the control back. You don't need to do any of that. You don't need to stand up and proclaim that you're an alcoholic in front of anyone. In fact, one of the blogs on my website talks about kind of the impact of labeling. It's not healthy. It's not healthy for our selves, our brains. So you don't have to call yourself anything that you don't want to call yourself. In fact, the medical industry is shifting away from this designation of alcoholic because there's no real medical definition for the term. Now, maybe you've taken some quizzes before online of, am I an alcoholic? And it runs you through a series of questions. At the end of the day, they're not conclusive because there's no real medical definition. If you think about, other addictive drugs like nicotine or cocaine, we don't call smokers nicotineaholics, right? Or cocaineaholics for those that are addicted to cocaine. The truth is, just like nicotine or cocaine, alcohol is addictive. It's an addictive substance. So instead of using alcoholic, the medical industry is shifting to use the term alcohol use disorder. And there's a wide spectrum of the disorder, which is why many people, many heavy drinkers fall into this gray area of drinking because it's not so clear cut. So I wanted to go on kind of on the record with that just initially. So we're going to focus on the substance and what happens to your brain when you drink. So alcohol is one of the only drugs that acts as both a stimulant and a depressant. It's a little bit confusing that way. At first, alcohol provides a bit of a buzz or a high, right? That's that buzz that you initially feel when you first have a drink. So initially, or in small doses, alcohol has this stimulating effect. So it appears to be a stimulant. But technically, it's classified as a depressant because of its effects on the central nervous system. It slows down brain activity, it impairs judgment, coordination, it can lead to sedation or drowsiness. This is why a lot of people think alcohol helps them sleep. It's actually not helping you fall asleep, it's sedating you, and it's not causing restful sleep. It impacts our REM sleeping modes. As you know, it can also cause slurred speech and the inability to react quickly, which is why you shouldn't drive under the influence, right? It can also affect Other various bodily functions, including heart rate, blood pressure, breathing, etc. You learned about that in some prior lessons, some of the impacts, of what happens to the body, which further reinforces its classification technically as a depressant, right? So I'm going to share a graphic here with you guys and kind of talk through it. And it's using cocaine actually as an example, but it's basically explaining how some drugs like alcohol and cocaine are targeting the brain's pleasure center. So what happens when you have that drink is that you experience this release of dopamine in the brain. Now, this happens because ethanol acts on the neurotransmitters in the brain and releases that dopamine. It causes surges of dopamine much greater than you would normally experience compared to regular, healthy, other pleasurable activities like playing music or socializing with friends or exercising. That surge of dopamine gives you the feeling of pleasure, which signals changes in the neural pathways that essentially lead to the formation of habits. It's basically creating a learning pattern. So in other words, dopamine is the neurotransmitter that is linked to the learning process. Okay, so that's kind of the bottom line on this neurotransmitter, neural pathways business, is that it essentially is linked to the learning process, so that when we drink alcohol, that is, we learn that it feels good because of the dopamine hit, and then that makes us want more of it, right? So it's creating that cycle and creating a habit that way. So on the flip side, though, while that high is going on, our bodies recognize that there's poison entering our system. So it generates new chemicals to counterbalance or to counter the effect, to try to get us back to homeostasis. Those other chemicals are ones that are called or known as dynorphin, cortisol, adrenaline. Those are stress hormones that are released into the brain to combat the impact of the ethanol that's been consumed, right? So while the impact of one drink, that's the dopamine hit, the impact of one drink lasts about an hour, the after effect of the dynorphin and the other stress hormones lasts about 2 to 3 hours per drink, right? So this is the reason why we feel anxious or nervous, perhaps, after a night of drinking, because it takes longer for the stress hormones to wear off compared to the dopamine, right? So once you've had that first drink and all the dopamine is released, then the counter chemicals come in to do their job and the high starts to wear off, which is why you drink for another drink, to keep that buzz going, right? So you're essentially creating this up and down pattern of chemicals, the buzz and then the depressant and the buzz and then the depressant. The interesting thing is that because of that dynorphin release, you'll never actually get to that same level of buzz as the first drink, because it's constantly being chased by the dynorphins and the stress hormones. So you'll never actually get caught up to where you were in the first place, if that makes sense. It's this kind of perpetual cycle. So over time, your brains get used to this level of alcohol, and it takes more and more to get that same level of buzz that you initially had, right? That's known as tolerance. We build up a tolerance for the poison in our systems, so it takes more of it to get that same effect that we would, may have had years ago. So I hope that makes sense. If you're a regular drinker and in the early stages of this alcohol-free challenge, your brain might not have caught up with the news that alcohol isn't going into it every day, quite yet anyway, so it's expecting the alcohol. What it's doing then, because it's expecting it, is it's automatically or proactively releasing the stress hormones in anticipation of the alcohol being consumed. So this is the other reason why you might be experiencing some anxiety or irritability right now, is because your body and your brain thinks that alcohol is going to come into it, and it's proactively releasing these stress hormones. So that's totally normal. Don't worry, it is all normal. It takes a little bit of time for those chemicals to rebalance. And a good Tylenol is always a good thing if you've got real bad headaches or some irritability, although Tylenol won't help with that. Just lots of water. You want to just continually be flushing out the toxins in your systems with lots and lots of water, especially in those early days. So with that, I'm going to end our lesson today with the main first reason of why we drink, and that is the substance itself, the chemicals that are happening when you consume alcohol, and the impact of on the neurotransmitters, how alcohol releases dopamine, and then the release of dynorphins and other stress chemicals. I hope that explains a little bit of the substance and the science around the substance. And with that, thank you for listening, and we will see you again next time.